See if everything is working. Hello, hello. As usual, the initial 10 seconds, get things going. Hello, hello. A nice, happy 4th of July, everyone. Whoever's in America. Freedom Day. Freedom Day, ironically, we're talking about a show where characters do not escape and do not get their freedom. So there's a bit of irony there, but I've never been so mixed about a TV show. It's a YouTube show, really. It's not, I wouldn't call it a TV show, but hello, welcome. I'm letting some people join, see if everything's working. It's been a while, hasn't it? It's been a couple of months. It's been quite a hectic month for me. So just happy to be back. I'm working on new videos, so that should come out at some point soon. I think it's going to be a very valuable video. I think it's going to be very educational. Let me know if you can hear me okay, by the way. I think it's going to be very educational, but yeah, these couple of months were quite hectic. Lots of things happening in my life. Had a massive throat problem, so had a throat infection, so couldn't really speak much, which is my greatest tool after all, my greatest weapon. So if I mute myself, you know that I was probably my cough or something like that. So keep that in mind. But I thought, hey, it's been a while. 4th of July, everyone's chilling, and they can chill while we talk about a show. A show that's been asked of me many times to look over, and I did. And I kind of try to not to do it, to be honest. I try not to make a video. I try not to avoid talking about this show too much because I couldn't get into it myself, and it's very difficult for me to give an honest sort of review without sort of having passion for it. I just sort of chalked it up to not my thing. But in reality, I think it is. There's still things to discuss. There's still valuable points to make about the show now that it ended, now that it concluded, because the worst thing that can happen is a lot of people who are into all the fan theories and all the sort of like look at the deep lore, look at all of this like complicated, hidden blink and you miss it kind of moments. It's all leading up to this one ending, and I think that I was like, I'm just gonna wait for the ending. I don't think it's gonna surprise as much people as they think they will. All of this build up and it just like petered off as expected, because honestly, if you're gonna build something actually meaningful, it would be from the very beginning. It wouldn't just be like, okay, here's the intro episode, then we're gonna have 7 episodes of them meandering around, and then yep, everything is gonna be resolved in the next like 3 episodes. It's like, okay. So no, you usually pace it out so that it is the mystery is already being resolved in episode 2, in episode 3, in episode 4, just little chunks of it, not just like nothing matters here, nothing matters there. But we'll get into that a bit more. I'm just still letting a few people come in. How are you guys doing? Is the audio good? Is the visuals good? Just double checking. I hope everyone is doing fine. Yeah, that's good. I'm trying this overlay, see if I'm not gonna get blocked, but we'll find out. We'll find out how it's gonna work. There's a lot of trends in on this stream. There's like a chibi trend, there's the neutral trend, and there's like the hyper realistic one. Are you going to make a video after the live? Not on Digital Circus, at least not yet. I still have 2 more things to go over, and I'm still looking for a right angle to approach Amazing Digital Circus with. I usually, when I make videos, I try to pick something that will, be educational or of value to creators, not just be like, this show sucks, I hate it, it's poo poo caca. It's like that's not my type. And I think pacing will probably be something that I will discuss more, because this show is slow. This is very slow pacing. I would actually argue that you can tell this entire story in less than an hour. It could be like a 40-minute video, because there's nothing really happening in the show. And people will be like, no, you're learning about these characters, but the way you're learning them is so slow. And it's so repetitive. Like again, this is where it happens. This is what happens. I don't want to be that guy who's just ranting about the show. the reason the slow part is really a big problem for me. And the way the exposition is given way too directly and way too much. So you're just like, okay, thank you for this information. I'll just note it in my character book, I guess, as opposed to letting us find out about these characters through their actions. A lot of them are just standing around for the most part. Okay, so hold on. There's a 1 second. I hear screaming outside. Let me close the window for a second. You can enjoy this little clips. Also, since I have the video, since I have these videos playing in the background, I know the overlay may be annoying, but pay attention of like how empty the shots are in many of these clips. Again, it's just the episodes going naturally, but the emptiness. If you take notice of how empty the frames are, and how the characters are just standing there in the frame fully, like the camera is not moving. There's no movement with the camera. Like maybe a slow pan you might see, but like look how empty everything is. And imagine watching 40 minutes of like this sort of emptiness, and all the characters are barely moving and they're talking in very slow, and like a lot of them sound like they're crying half of the time. So that's why it's kind of difficult for me to get into it, because it was just so unenergetic, just low energy. As Trump says, low energy. It's very low energy, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Let me just close the window for a second. There we go. I'm back. But I'm more curious what you guys think. If you write in the comments, if you have any kind of thing you disagree with me, you can let me know. If you have any specific questions. Oh, my chat is not working. Oh my goodness. 1 second. That's a big problem. Let me just fix that right up so I can see your chats going. I can clearly see it's been a while, hasn't it? Chat. That should be okay. It should be working. There we go. Now we're cooking. Now we can see your chat. I only watched the pilot when it came out. I had same issues. Felt it was very direct without showing much of anything. So to talk about episode 1, it's very common in indie animation to have an episode 1 to be what I like to call the tour episode. So it's like, let me show you all the cool things that are in this world that I made. The character says it, that is like, okay, so this is gonna be the action zone. This is gonna be this. It's the tour episode. Charlie, Husband Hotel did a similar thing. It's like, oh, welcome to my Husband Hotel. This is the lounge. This is the bar. This is the thing, and this is the thing, and I'm gonna be this, and this is Husk. Like you're introducing everyone, and it's such a direct way where you don't have to do it, because if this location is going to be relevant at some point, we don't have to introduce it yet. We can get there when we get there. We don't need to like let the audience know that these things exist. Like this is the void. It's like, no, I kind of wanted to go to the void when it became relevant, not just randomly go there. But from the perspective of the creators, they're like, well, we made all these assets, we need to show them off right now, because how else are we gonna interest the audience? That's usually the mindset. It's like, I need to show this right now. There's no patience. And there's a lot of it's quite a modern concept right now, where usually you hook people in with the mystery, and then you allow the world to open up. The mystery should be strong enough at the beginning. So whether it's the prologue, the backstory, some sort of great evil emerging or something, then you do the hook, and hopefully that people get hooked on the concept, and then you start introducing the locations one by one, because no matter where you go, where the characters go, we still have the hook, we still have the mystery to resolve. And that's why when we enter different locations, again, if you go to Lord of the Rings, imagine Gandalf go like, oh, this is Mordor, and this is Khazad-dûm, or whatever the locations. This is Hobbiton. I can't wait to go on this epic adventure through all of these places. It's like, no, you'll get there when we get there. Let's introduce them there. but it's a common thing in indie animation. I've noticed the tour episodes, and that's what episode one is. It's like, here's the characters, here's the tour, here's and you're not actually getting the main hook. Besides, like, we need to get out of here, which they abandoned very quickly. The concept of getting out of this trap. No, you're not saying too much, Illuminated. That's fine. Let's. I'm just gonna read a few more comments before I go into too much of a chat. Da-da-da. Uh, they're starting allowing a sociopathic waste on the of ones and zeros abusing everyone. Yes. Um, I'll tell you on that. On that front, the concept is not new. This is not a new concept. This people trapped in a AI's world and getting tormented. Obviously, this, as probably Gooseworks mentioned already, it's probably inspired by I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which sort of popularized the concept of brain scans, and people trapped it again in a virtual world has existed in Soma and other media forms. So there's not it's still not a new concept. It has existed, and there's better stories about the same topic. So keep that in mind. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. I don't particularly recommend the book, but I like the game. The game is very strong, and I kind of wanted the show to be a lot like the I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream games, where all the adventures that the characters go to are relevant to the character. Like Kane is building the adventure specifically for that character to resolve some kind of issue or keep them stimulated, or maybe they see that, whatever, pick an anxiety of your choice. It's like, okay, they're afraid of this, they're afraid of being left alone, let's put them in an adventure where they're left alone and the other guys are going to try to save them, something like to force them into into sort of resolving their unresolved issues and thus keeping their mind stable, something like that. It would still be dark and you would still see Kane as a villain, but it would be somewhat who's like a logical villain. He's not just wasting time, which again, the wasting time is the biggest issue I think in this entire series. So Trent, did you like the gun episode? I actually like the gun episode, but not for the reasons that the show wanted me to like it. I think I actually like that the characters were doing things and not just like whining and being miserable about it. Obviously the Jax scene with Bobney at the end. It's like, well, we've seen. I knew this before. You don't need to tell me about Jax being, detached and unwilling to make friends anymore because of whatever happened in the past. That was pretty clear, I think, very early on. Um, I don't particularly like Jax as a character. I don't think many people do, or the people who do have a strange sense of morality, or I don't know. Um, they try to they try to make you empathize with Jax. Sorry, but he's just an asshole. Like, there's nothing much to the character, and you can say like, oh, it's because he was traumatized. Oh, it's because he had all of these issues. I'm like, no, you can. It's not justifiable. Like, I don't know why he's beating, bullying Gangle, why he trips her over, why he just keeps tormenting people. Which you could have done an interesting concept of a person who is sort of aware that this is all not necessarily consciously aware, but someone who's like realized the limitations of this digital circus, and someone who just enjoys the sadistic element of it, like how Am was in I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. You could have Jax be that character to just completely enjoy the concept of tormenting people who are still have hope, and because he has lost hope. But this is not the Jax we have. The Jax we have is like, oh, I was an asshole to people, so I'm gonna continue being an asshole to people because I don't wanna get have them close to me. Therefore, I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Do you because and I'll tell you this much. In the real world, that would never happen. No one would engage with an asshole. They would just leave him alone, and he would he would get abstracted. The fact that the characters are actually trying to help Jax for some reason is sort of, again, the author is forcing the situation. Like, no, Jax is an asshole. Everyone's ignoring him. Like, okay, Gangle is like, get out of here, Jax. Haktui on you, and that's it. And Jax then is like, okay, I guess I'll be alone, and then he gets abstracted instantly. But again, I don't think that's what they wanted to do. But not normally in reality. That's what happens to characters who are assholes. The story doesn't force them to be redeemed. Ooh, chat is active. Let's have a look at what the chat is up to. Dropped after episode 5. Yeah. Hi Trent, excited to hear your analysis here. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into analysis. I think a lot of people are still in the sort of honeymoon phase where they still think it's good, but over time, people will come to the conclusion that there was not that much to gain from it. There's interesting concepts. Again, because they're using stories like "I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream" and "Soma" as their sort of foundation for these stories. They obviously inspired that kind of mindset, like these kind of thoughts of like, oh, what would happen if you're stuck in this virtual world where you cannot escape? Also, spoilers, by the way. Obviously, spoilers. I will be talking from the concept of like what the show revealed in the last episode. So I'm not gonna keep it. I'm not gonna keep it safe. Like, oh, no. I'll say it how it is, how what actually happened. Because what changes, and I'm not going in a linear way, to be honest. I'm keep that in mind. This is a sort of I will jump back and forth. But the reason why I want to bring this up is because these characters who all these characters who are tormented by Kane, who are trying to escape, we found out that they're just brain scans, right? So they're not real people. They're not trapped in a virtual machine. They are just scans of their brains, and they are given consciousness, which does reduce a lot of the stakes. And it just gets rid of everything. Basically, it doesn't really matter how long they stay there because there's no biological body that is stuck. It takes away. Like, it doesn't really matter what happens to them. The computer could just shut down, and that's actually would have been preferable if they realized that they're just brain scans and the best way for them to just to not exist, as opposed to like, oh, let's just live together. Because no, you're just data on a disk. There's no real person in there. Of course, you can ask the question like, oh, maybe they do have some sort of like, because they're conscious and they're aware. That means they have no. They're Soma did this concept a lot better. I'll tell you this much. If you're curious about this concept, try Soma, the video game. That'll keep your noggin jogging. Let's see. Let's look at the comments. I'll let me know what you think, so I could actually answer some specific questions, because I could ramble and ramble and on. So, am I saying too much? The gun episode. I like the dynamic. I kind of wanted Jax to open up a little bit. My favorite episode, to be honest, is the fast food one, because Jax was finally getting his comeuppance. You actually got a bit of Gangle. Yeah, got a bit of Gangle's personality. All the characters are put in a position where they're not just being themselves. They're sort of forced or pushed to act a little bit differently than they were, and I kind of appreciated that a lot. I also liked episode 8, I think, where Kane is finally doing something that actually, puts some stress on the characters, because one of the things about Am and I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is that Am is tormenting them. He's literally just there for the sort of sadistic need to torment. Whereas Kane is like, I think he just tried to keep them alive, in which case he would not go about. Like, there's not much conflict then if he's just there to like keep them entertained so they don't die. You know, I think we can. You don't need to. Whatever you're doing, you're not doing it well, Kane. But if he's when he actually started to like torment them and just like push them a little bit, I'm like, okay, now they're prompted to actually want to get out of this place. It's like, where was this prompting before? Why not have that earlier, so that while they're doing their adventures, they're still trying to break through. They're still trying to break through into the real world without knowing that they're brain scans. And that could be the reveal in the end. Is like the reveal in the end. They think they can escape, but then they come to realization that they're brain scans, and thus they try to shut the machine down, because it's a lot better to just not exist than have Kane torment them, and thus Kane dies as well. So that could be the tragic ending. But of course, they're like, no, we like these characters. We don't want them to die. We want them to live happily. Like, but they're okay, fine. Nothing gained, nothing lost, I suppose. Let's see. The show feels like it's structured like a 26 episode season, but but is a standalone that half episodic up till they, God damn it, Raptor, structure your sentences. And then they decide it's a serialized story. It's like a little bit like a soap opera in some cases. This show. The first episode establishes the world. The rest of the episodes are just a bunch of filler, and then the last two episodes are actually meaningful to the story. So if you cut down all those, all those other episodes, you're probably gonna get a nice little movie out of it. Of course, you would need to restructure things, but it's everything else is not that deep. But I'm sure people will argue that it is deep because there's a lot of like hidden like red herrings everywhere. There's a bunch of like, oh, what is this corporation up to? Like we had this in Murder Drones, we had this in the other Glitchworks movies because we need our mystery box in order for the fan base to actually like make better ideas, make better shows in their minds rather than the ones that were given. I think episode 5 or was it episode 6 that they were just sitting down in the bar and giving their backstories to each other. And I'm just thinking, like, you shouldn't not, because Pomni I get, but the other characters already should know each other because they've been stuck there for much longer. I forgot exactly how many years they've been stuck together, but surely they would have discussed all of like their backstories, why they're here, what brought them in, unless they don't remember, which they do remember because we see them give the exposition to us. So they don't remember the names though, so that's what. Yes, we need to. Maybe I'll talk about narrative economy. I feel like if I'm gonna make a video on this, like a proper video on Amazing Digital Circus, narrative economy is probably going to be one of the topics I want to discuss a lot more. So for those who don't know, the narrative economy is the idea that how much information you can deliver to the audience in one shot, in a dialogue line, in whatever. There's many clever ways of conveying information without wasting time. So telling the backstory is the one of the slowest ways of doing it. Whereas like when I was a kid, I put on a dress and my dad beat me up for it. That's kind of the slowest way of doing it, because that means that you're just delivering the info as it's like read on a character sheet. And then the other character says the same, says their backstory, which again adds more to the time, as opposed to we picking up the clues over time, over the period. We maybe they have a dress in their they have a dress in their bedroom. Maybe there's something again with Jack's overreact, but again, Jack's overreact to the maid dress does not give us an indication that he is somehow like suffering from some sort of body dysmorphia or whatever it was. It's just like he is a guy and he doesn't like to wear a dress. A lot of guys will have the same reaction even though they have no feelings, even though they have no gender dysphoria or something like that. It's a strange one. Like there's ways of doing what the show tried to do in much faster, much more clever ways of doing it. But here's the thing: a lot of people like the direct approach. I've seen it's been a lot more prominent now, and I mentioned this in my Has Been Hotel video about characters directly saying what they are, what they like, what they don't like, and all that. It just seems to be the common fad right now, and I don't know whether it's going to be a good one if we keep popularizing this concept. I'll talk about this in my next video a lot more, where characters just give us the backstory, we just write it down for the wiki. No, you want to experience, like if someone is suffering from depression, you want them to experience that depression. If not for them telling that they have depression, but to actually see how that depression affects their approach to solving problems. So the adventures as a concept work pretty well. You can have the adventure and then we see all the character flaws during the adventures. But the adventures always feel like they're separate. So there's, I don't want to over talk too much, but the episode where the bar scene is happening, I think it's the same one. There seems to be a structure in which we have funny shenanigan, trauma dumping, funny shenanigan, trauma dumping, mystery. And it's just like ding, 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 ding. Like there's no in between. There's no funny shenanigan where you're hidden the mystery. There's no trauma dump where or comedy with a bit of trauma dump mixed in. It's so segmented. And that's just a person from the writer. Usually it's the sort of beginner level of writing when you're like, okay, this is the trauma scene. Okay, this is this scene. But you don't realize that the character is always, has the trauma. There's no scene where they don't have the trauma. That means that the character would act with the trauma in them. Sorry if I again ramble too much, but I hope you understand what I mean when I talk about these kind of concepts. Also, if you're new to the live streams, I do these every so often. And if you want to find the previous one, they're in my Ko-fi page. You can just click on there, look in the description, and you can find them too. So this is unhinged rambling of trends. So and also again, you can interact and ask me questions, and I'll try to respond. But I'll have a look at them now. Lack of patience is probably from indie animation having an overall reduced episode count. No, again, we need to get rid of the stigma that's like, oh, the indie animations don't have time to reveal everything. I was like, no, they can't. And again, that's why narrative economy is important. You can deliver so much information in very so little time. Through a one shot can actually give you everything you need to know about a character. And there's many examples where they do that. We recently watched in our Discord server, we watched Beauty and the Beast recently, and they revealed in 5 minutes in a 5-minute song, they revealed where we are, who the character is, who the villain is, what the character wants, what the villain wants, how the world perceives them, how they perceive the world, and the overall, like, again, the drive that will motivate her to go, for the rest of the story. What is the big one that she makes her? So, and all of that is described in 5 minutes, right? In a single song. And the benefit of a song is that you can do exposition in the song without the exposition being noticeable, because it's an entertaining approach, delivering that information. It's a much more entertaining way. So they just dun dun dun, like da 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 da, and there we go. Now we have the character, we have the villain, we have the conflict, everything in 5 minutes, done. Like, next scene, done. There's a really fun moment in that movie as well, where Belle says, like, finds out that her dad went to save her, or something like. She basically needs to get back to the castle, and she's like, we need to go back, and then immediately cuts to her already back in the castle. I'm like, how beautiful is that? There's no running animations, there's no time wasted, because we know where the castle is. We already seen it before, so we don't need to cut it and have the whole running animation again. Done. It's clean, it's sharp. Whereas in this one, they just look at a lot of the shots are just wasting time in this. And a lot of the moments, the comedy moments, could have been, again, pushed into the narrative itself. It shouldn't be separated. Like, okay, funny, trauma, funny. There's ways of doing it, and there's been done before. You keep the trauma for the second act. Usually, you keep the trauma and the stuff for the second act low point. But then you still develop the characters so we like the characters, and then we can give them the trauma. Trauma dumping is not the best way to get your people to like your character. Or the only people who like those characters are usually people who relate to the problem. So it's like, wow, this guy has depression. I have depression too, therefore relatable. It's a good tool to use, though, but I'm not saying my favorite. Let's have a look. But yes, to sum up my last point, narrative economy is important. It's don't waste time where it's not necessarily needed to be wasted. And it's very difficult to figure out, but with a bit of discussion, a bit of consultation, you can find a way to actually make it work. You just be like, okay, is this scene necessary? I was like, what are we gaining from this scene? Well, we gain X. Can we gain this the same thing from this scene? We can. Okay, great. So let's cut out that scene and just put the X in there. Like, great. And you save up 2 minutes, let's say. But that means you have to be a little bit harsher with the revisions and really decide how those word dialogue, how those actions actually impact the overall narrative. The is indie project feels like the opposite of big budget studio entertainment. Instead of being made by investors with no creativity, it's made by artists who lack experience and story fundamentals. Yes, yes. We recently, this is a little bit from my personal life, but we recently had this discussion. I was going to a sort of leadership training program at work, and one of the things I like is a lot of companies. Again, this side tangent, but a lot of companies are trying not to be corporations. They're like, we're not your everyday corporation. We are fun. We like to have fun here. We chill. We don't wear suits and ties. We wear t-shirts and flip-flops. We're that kind of company. We're not, we're doing whatever we can. But the thing is, once you start to grow big enough, you kind of need to have those processes in and become a little bit of a corporation in order to actually make things good. Because chilling and that is all fun when you're a little entrepreneur and you're just testing things out. But as you're growing in popularity, so like glitches that as well, you need to start having responsible people who are actually keeping time, who are actually knows what they're doing. You have a little bit more of a conservative sort of mindset in the sort of laid back, and then they become very strict with it. That's kind of part of my job, outside outside of this. I'm just like cut, 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 cut. We don't need this. We don't need this. Get this out. It costs, costs, costs. Let's focus on the things that work. It's like kind of mindset. So that's what it is. And I can see Glitch Productions. A lot of the problems there is that there's no sort of I don't want to be condescending, but there's no adult who's keeping an eye on the actual story. Be like, do we need 40 minutes? And maybe there are. Maybe the producers are saying, well, we need the watch time, so let's make this 40 minutes. We need the watch time to make this longer. We need the ad revenue. I don't know. Again, I don't know the business process of Glitch. And a lot of the things can be still explained by not just incompetence, but what's the purpose of keeping the shows this long? What's the purpose of adding the unnecessary mystery boxes? There's always a plan somewhere. Okay. Yes, Didac inspired by I Have No Mouth. I tried watching episodes only, going through a few minutes of it, but I may try again. I often recommend people watching this at 2x speed because the way they deliver the information is not in any way kind of engaging. Not to say in any way engaging, but it's the most basic way of like telling. So all you need to do is listen to the information. So if you have it 2x speed, you'll get the information quicker. And then the jokes, if you're into the jokes, well, maybe you can slow down for them, but I don't think they're worth it. So I don't think there's any harm in doing it in 2x speed. Besides, like maybe the last two episodes, which you may want to pay attention a bit more. But for the filler ones, you can get the info. Trend, just a question. Since you said the dialogue is slow, what speed should the dialogue be? I wish I could. I wish I could just go to the clip, but I'm just playing this like as it is now. One would be as example. Jax pushes Pomni over, right? And Zubul is like, Jax, why did you push Zubul over? And Jax is like, well, I'm the comedic relief, so I'm doing whatever wacky thing I want to do because that's who I am. And then Zubul goes like, you're an asshole, you know that, right? And then Jax is like, so Subi, and you can see what is this conversation actually achieving? In my case, it would be if I had to do it like Jax pushes Pomni over. Zubul says, Jack, you're an asshole. And he would be like, so sue me. It doesn't matter. Like if in a few sentences, you can say the exact same thing, but they just go like extra 20 lines that are not necessary to deliver with the information that is delivered. In fact, you could even do that scene. Without talking. Jack pushes Pomni over. Zubul looks at him angrily and helps Pomni up. Again, why you want to do this scene, we need to figure out the context, but you see what I mean? You can just cut down even more. But in Digital Circus's case, they always have to be like, Gangle goes, I'm sad because no one appreciates me, or like, everyone hates me. And then we have to go for the whole spiel again of like, Ragatha going, it's not true. People actually like you. And you're a valuable member of this team, and we really appreciate you here, Gaggle. So please come back with us in order so we can hang out. It's like, oh my god. You can shorten this, or if you're gonna keep it this long, you need to make it a little bit more, push it a little bit more. How does this character would say? Because if I can replace Ragatha with Pomni in terms of how they speak, then there's no point in having either of them. They need to have some sort of individuality. They can't just all say the same thing or speak in a very similar way. Like the only one who gets more individuality is probably Jax, but that's because he's acting not like the other characters. Like Pomni and Gangle and Ragatha. Ragatha is also slightly different, but Pomni and Gangle, one is just slightly more assertive than the other one. That's mainly it. Let's have a look. Any comments? And again, I might get back on a lot of like expand on some of those ideas, but you're getting a sort of the harsh my harsh observations, and there's reasoning for them. But if I don't get into too much detail, or if you want to get more detail out of me, then feel free to ask. I'll get through the conversations. I'll try to. Let's see. Hello. Oh my God, I just the chat just refreshed and it's like a wall of text. Oh God. No, it's okay. I appreciate everyone's chat. I'll see if I can get there. Let's scroll up a bit. Oh my God. Oh, there we go. Gooseworks mentioned too much these past 3 years, to be honest. Yeah, I wouldn't. Again, I'm surprised she's doing it on her own. I think it's a woman, right? Gooseworks. I feel like she needs someone to sit down with her and like go through the revisions. I think it could have actually worked. You could have gained so much more out of the time that you were given. I feel like one of the concepts, and happens a little bit more often, is for authors who have a character sheet. So like they write down what the character problems is, and that's the only thing that they care about this character. So like Jackson asshole, who's misunderstood as well because of his past. I was like, okay, anything more about him? Does he have any kind of preferences? Does he have any hobbies? What does he do outside of like what is his drive to get out of bed? And that's another thing about character agency. A lot of these characters, and obviously there's a reason for them to not have agency, but I would like those the characters to challenge Kane a bit more than they had already. A lot of them are just like, let's go on an adventure, and they're actually committing to the adventure without questioning like, why do we need to even do this? It's like, oh well, Kane told us to do it, so we're gonna do this epic adventure. It's like, but why? And the reason why I like episode, I think it's episode 8, it's again when Kane is actually getting angry, is that's what Kane is. If they don't do the adventure, then Kane just abuses them. So that they must do the adventure, right? And I'm like, okay, so we can go there, and then maybe while they're doing the adventures, they're trying to find a way to get out, and over the time they figure out what's holding them back, and then they come to the realization that they can never leave because there's no bodies to leave to. They're already stuck there, and that's the sort of the tragic ending to that adventure. But that's how I would have phrased it. It would just keep them active. It means that they don't just give up, like, okay, there's no exit, I give up, so what do we do now? Oh, we just meander. Like the fact that Pomni doesn't get back to the exit door for a long time in the show is already like, no, she's the recent one. She will probably still want to get out of this place because she doesn't know that she's not human. So that means that she should still be looking for the exit. That might be, something that Kane might utilize and use it against her desire to go up to it. Then many ways of doing it, but like the fact that they just give up and go back to playing games or going on adventures, that sort of bothers me. It just takes away a bit of that agency from the characters. And again, one of the things that I was thinking about as well, the characters don't have distinct like desires in this world, in this amazing digital circus world, because one of the thing I like is about Jax pressing the red button. I think it was the one that will keep them staying in the circus, is a sort of indication that he doesn't want to go back to the real world, right? He does. He has he is too afraid of going back to whatever place he was in. Great, That means you could play with that. You could have a character who doesn't want anyone to live the circus. So when Pomni is trying to look for the exit, he might actually be in opposition to her. So you have a lot more conflict because, and he may be acting that he does want to leave, but every time they try to get any closer, he sabotages the adventure, and he says like, "Oh, I was just cheeky asshole," but in reality, he wants to keep them there. You know, Pomni would want to go to the exit. How would the other characters react? Maybe Gangle wants to stay, or maybe she wants to gain something from Kane. Maybe there's so many options to do, but the point is that each of them kind of needed almost like their own independent mission to follow, because otherwise it's just they're just sitting around eating cookies, and then Kane shows up and is like, "Let's go on adventure," and they're like, "Okay, that's it." It's like cruel. But how much of the dynamic would have been? We just have here's Pomni. Look, he's like, "Guys, I found the exit, or I found something closer to this is the information." Or they might reveal that again. Kingler knows something. I don't talk much about Kingler, but they could have made it a little bit more of a mystery there. But anyway, let's go back to the comments. The lack of patience from okay. Yes, it was inspired by Trent. I have hours worth of vent art directed at Jax. Yeah. You know what? The scene that really made me sort of dislike Jax is the escalator scene. It was is the scene where Gangle is trying like ladies first, and then he's like, "Wait, what am I talking? What am I saying?" And he just pushes Gangle over and steps onto the escalator. And I'm like, "Wait a minute! I didn't know the context. I didn't know the context at the end, like about Jax." But I was like, why did you do that? And the show itself is not making this funny. It's like it's quiet. There's no sound. It's a wide shot, so you actually feel the pain of Gangle falling over. So it's not like a joke. It's not revealing anything about the character besides what we already know, that Jack's an asshole. It makes you dislike them. So like, what are you trying to do in this? It's like, besides just making me upset at this character who's getting unfair amount of screen time. It's like, what are you trying to achieve? Several minutes of some directed at Pomni. Right, I'm here. What happened? Welcome, serial naval gazer. I have mixed feelings on Jax. I think I like an idea of his character, but I'm not sure about the cast going out of their way to want to help him. Yes, I mentioned this after he goes crazy. Yeah, as I said, assholes don't really get that kind of pity from characters who are not assholes, unless they can see that he's a wounded animal. But that's not. We haven't seen enough of that. Besides him moping around, but you can't really be moping around when you're the one who's causing them, people to not like you. Let's see. Oh God, I'm afraid to scroll down because it's going to be like another wall of text. But hey, I appreciate you guys all. Actually, I'll take a little drink and read out some of the comments. Stay tuned. Being a constant subject on Fox Gore. I feel that one character being a constant subject of Fox Gore was extremely unnecessary. Which one is that? I think I know what you mean, but I don't particularly know which one you're referring to in terms of Fox, or sorry, Fox Gore. I call it Fox because I'm used to it. But to be honest, many people have heart turned on it with the finale. The reason why people turn on it on the finale again, I think I'm not saying anything new here, but the reality is that a lot of things were set up and weren't resolved. The fact that it was a Jax focused episode at the finale is not the place for it to be there. And again, the ending, I think, of them watching the Facebook feeds of all the characters is just like slightly cringe, because again, it's not them. It's a different. These are different people. So they're like, "Oh, that's me. I managed to succeed in life. Yay!" Just like, okay, that's not you. It's a different person who's free and you're not. So again, you can assume that it's you. It's like, okay, that's my brain. The person who had the brain scan is there and they're doing well. But at this point, ever since you got turned on, no pun intended, ever since you got into this world, you're a different person. Your brain is now being altered. So you're a different being, and you think differently from the person you got brain scanned. What do you call the phrase where you're getting over a civil breakup? I don't know. So the finale wasn't good. I don't know. Like again, I think I liked episode 8, and I think 7 was it. Whichever was the Kane was an asshole is one of those was I really liked, because you actually push the characters, you push them a little bit to the limit. They don't want to just sit around. Great. But yeah, I don't know why we gave Jax such a focus. Like, we need to save it. We need to save Jax. You know, something's happening to him, or them just rebuilding the circus. That's also like what are we doing? How long is this gonna have long? Because Kingler destroying Kane would have been fine, and then they're having to find a way to, because in some ironic way that if they destroy Kane and they're stuck in this world without being able to switch off is another way of cool, like a sort of a sad I have no mouth and I must scream ending. It's like you got rid of your tormentor, but now you're stuck in sort of this isolation, like in this way that you cannot do anything, you cannot conjure anything, you cannot do any adventures. And over time you realize like, wait, maybe, you know, we needed those adventures. And so they all get abstracted and die. Like that's like the only way I can see this story ending is in a sort of a either like a bittersweet ending, like a tragic ending, I would say. The ending that we got is sort of also bittersweet because they're like, okay, let's just live together, you know. But I'm like, I don't know, like could have gone a lot more out of it rather than just like, I like these characters too much to kill them off, therefore I won't. It's like, no, they kind of, it's about time. It's time to put them to sleep, guy. I do think the show executes the characters mostly well to varying degrees and gave us pretty much everything that actually mattered lore-wise. Definitely feel rushed or incomplete, but some aspects they had plenty of time. I don't know what people think when it's like it's rushed. No, the reason why it's rushed is because the plot kicked in at the end of the season, like not season, but the end of the series. The plot should have kicked in episode 2, but the plot refused to. It's spinning his wheel for 5 episodes. So it's like, oh yeah, it was rushed, it was incomplete. I'm like, yes, it was, because they wasted their time on meaningless things. You have this great animation, you have these, you know, interesting cast of characters which clearly have some sort of backstories that you can explore, and we just sort of sped run through it and finished off with the character we least like the least. It's like, I don't know, like I don't know what to expect. There's much to gain, and lore wise, it's again, I don't really get into lore wise because that requires a lot more like reading Wikipedia pages and be like, wow, this was like all written down. I was like, no, it wasn't that relevant in the grand scheme of the narrative things. Even though you mentioned this lore or you have like some sort of logo in the background, it's not enough to actually leave that of a lasting impression where it actually matters. If it was important, it would be highlighted, not hidden. It's like you're almost ashamed of the lore. It's like, there is lore, but I'm ashamed of telling it. I want to lore Tromadom. It's like, no. What is your take on why it's so popular? Animation algorithm. So the question was, what is your take on why Digital Circus is so popular? Algorithm, good animation, hashtag relatable characters, sort of Tumblr-esque writing. Like that's really the combination. It's the same. It's kind of the same way that Hasbro Hotel and and some of the other shows are popular. You can do these kind of shows. There's an audience for that as well. It's not my type of audience, but you can make these kind of shows popular. It's very, very possible. There is a structure to it as well. Don't get me wrong. The reason why a lot of and I was thinking about that is like, because I oftentimes say that direct exposition is not a good form of storytelling. It achieves a goal as well, especially for people who may not figure out the context clues, who may just prefer people telling that information. Those people will really appreciate this movie, because there's like, I don't have to think too much, I don't have to interpret things too much, I don't have to infer. Everything is given to me on a platter, and if it's not given to me, well, I'll just make it up and then say the show did it. That's usually the sort of approach. And that sort of leaves the door open for people to make fan art, fan fiction, and so on and so forth. So I hope that makes sense. Again, I'm theorizing in many ways. I'm theorizing as well because, in fact, in the script that I'm writing now for is this I ask the same question. It's like, is it good or bad? Traditionally, it is considered bad. Can it be popular? Yes. There's a reason why Twilight, the Twilight books and movies are popular, is because even though by conventional standards of storytelling, it is by conventional standards of storytelling, it is um, we would consider it bad. They still manage to achieve an audience that they'll find it engaging enough where they would say it's good, and like that's perfectly fair enough. It's like, what is your goal? Who's your audience? All of these could be like figured it out. Like I could only give you like how do we, like in my mind is like, how do we deliver information efficiently? That's in some ways that's my kind of favorite part. Is like there's so many ways to gain both, not just the lore bits, but also the feelings, the emotion, um, the whole, like everything in multiple layers. So you don't have to share the screen with like one layer at a time. You can actually deliver multiple ones. And if you watch some complex shows like Serial Experiments Lane, you can see how they do it expertly. It's like I have no complaints on there. It just keeps me, even a certain moments just keep my brain like thinking, and it takes up so much space in my head. Is like they managed to gain all of that from a single scene, and you have to praise that. Whereas in some cases, a show like this will require 5 different episodes to get to that feeling. And I'm like, you can do it in less. You can do it faster. You can do it stronger. But that takes time, takes thinking, and takes a little bit more risks. But it may not be the time. It may not. For a young audience, that might be too complex. So it's purely on what's your audience, what is your goal, and that's why generally I make the writing advice videos. They're general writing advice, right? They're not anything magical. The Where it helps the most is when when I have a discussion with a writer and they tell me what their goal is, and then I can say, is it good or bad, or what do I think could be done better? Because if I don't know the goal yet, it's like any advice I give is not going to be it's not going to be useful, because of like, oh, this is weird and out of character. It's like, yes, I want that. I'm like, okay, let's see how we can get the same feeling differently. Then it's like, if I don't get that, then if I don't know the goal, I don't know whether it's good or bad. But I can tell you from the traditional sense, from what do we consider standard to be good writing or bad writing or good storytelling, then I can give you the basics. Um, Trend I'm thinking about eventually watching Freehan before touching. Oh my god, what is that? Soma. Oh, I have no Mafana. Yeah, you could do that. You could watch Freehan episode season 1, and then I wouldn't recommend necessarily season 2, but season 1 definitely. Fast Food Masquerade in hindsight felt like a trap. Yeah, Spuddy's episode is my favorite too. Yeah, Fast Food episode was fun. My favorite was the Candy Kingdom episode. Candy Kingdom episode is only interesting because of that like side quest that Pomni goes on to. The main quest was not particularly all that exciting for me. It's only that one scene. Yeah, but here's the thing: those scenes are what I think would have been, even like if we push that even more, we could have got a lot of great moments there. But they're just scratching the surface in terms of what they could achieved. And but that was enough. That was enough for people to be like, "Wow, it's so deep." It's like, no, there's these are concepts that have been not new. You're getting the early stage, like the baby's first existential crisis experience. I feel like the two of us, buddy cops. Let's see, fast food. Oh god, I realize how late I am in the chat reading because I'm just reaching the fast food masquerade like discussion. Um, but I'm happy you're all here. I'm glad you missed me. I can't wait to make a new video for you guys. Super excited. It's a doozy one. It's gonna be a long one. But I don't. I hope you don't. You're not gonna get scared of the content that what media we're gonna be discussing. Um, I don't like the how the shop drops the theme. The show drops the theme of existentialism explored in this first few episodes. Uh, yeah, the existentialist crisis has sort of gets faded away very quickly, and they just accept that they sort of just get over it. Like, oh, great, man. I almost feel like they need to you need to watch Serial Experiments Lane. Like whoever liked Digital Circus, just watch Serial Experiments Lane. That's gonna really push your head. Like it's everything Digital Circus, but minus the comedy and just makes you think. That show makes you think. It covers all the topics that kind of that this show covers. Episode 1-7 feels largely economical. Episode 1-5, but the later episodes do become both bloated and rushed at points. Yeah, it's just pacing. It's pacing. Trend. I feel like if the two of us were buddy cops, you might be the cop because I was far too fixated on Jax abusing Ragatha. Oh yeah, he abuses everyone. I was like, why did they let them get away with it? That probably doesn't make sense. Yeah. I'm so glad this amount of years is hidden in computer code. I know there's a lot of lore problems, but again, I can't really get into it too far deep because the first group of people were like the scientists who got into the circus, but then later, it's like many years later, Pomni finds the VR headset while like like looking around abandoned buildings, and then plugs herself in there. Is that the case? Question mark. I think that is. I think that was. But again, it's like it's lore things. It's lore things. It's like I'm sure that someone will be like, "No, Trent, you're an idiot." They're actually all 20 years apart. I was like, but how did they get into the computer? How did they get the brain scans? If the company went bankrupt, how did Pobby get into the brain? Does it just take the putting on the VR headset? Is it all only that? But that's again, it's less of a concern right now for me. If I started to actually examine it closer, that it would bring up those problems would be brought up very quickly. Jack's being weirdly condescending towards Zubal's stereotypical jobs, trying to integrate that. Yeah. Also, yeah, Gangle is another character that sort of. Sorry, let's not talk about that first. I want to talk about Zubul and Jax. Zubal's problem is that she never found a piece that she likes. Kind of, she has a sort of problem with her self identity, an identity issue. Is that was that something before? Like, you can answer this question because maybe I missed it out. But was that something that her real life counterpart had a problem with, or was it just because she was spawned into a piece of, like many pieces that she's struggling with it? That because it wasn't like quite clear where the trauma really begins and ends between the real one and the brain scan. Oh yeah, but speaking, I've just got into the comments about the maid dress, Jack's maid dress. They milked the hell out of this one. They milked for the merch. They milked it for the t-shirts. Like Jackson maid dress. It's like odd one. It's an odd one where you're sort of monopolizing on the idea of like someone is actually dealing with gender dysphoria. I was like having some sort of insecurities about their gender, and it's like, okay, buy this maid dress Jax. Everyone's likes maid dress Jax. Buy it now. Buy. It's like, I don't. And again, they didn't have to make Jax that kind of a complicated, not a complicated character, but it's like that kind of would have that kind of problem. I can imagine him getting too attached and then getting betrayed, but it doesn't have to necessarily be with his like whatever transgenderism story that they had. You could have had the again many characters have the same problem where it's like I got too attached, it didn't work out, and now I'm too afraid of making contact with people. Perfectly fine story. It doesn't have to necessarily be about, dressing up and shit. But it could be. It's just I just feel like it's a little bit superficial in some cases. Let's see. One of the characters I'm writing is based on. Okay. Hey, Trend finale has got me thinking, and I might be overthinking it, but I think I see why it became so underwhelming. Given some stuff that Gooseworks said on social media, plus burnout. Again, I don't know much about Gooseworks. I think again, for me, it just seems like a lack of experience rather than some incompetence. It doesn't seem there are some great ideas, the interesting research done here. It just needs tightening. That's at most points. Like that's really the problem. There was a lot of ideas, and I don't think it's just the execution worked out as well as probably it could have. And I think the animation is also pushing the show's popularity. It's easy to capture the audience by giving them again some mystery boxes and some good animation and some hashtag relatable characters. You can do that easily. The funny thing to me is they're running memes now where it's like every indie animation ever is like realistic depiction of panic attacks because so many indie shows do that. Like if you're an indie animation, do a realistic depiction of a panic attack, and you're good. You're gonna get your million views. In some ways, TDAC is a step above Ruby and has been given no time, opportunity, or examples of characterization or development. So everything happens off screen via actual reasons or connective tissues. Is it a step above? Is it? At least how the information is delivered to us, they're basically identical, Hasman Hotel and Amazing Dish Circus, because they're both telling us what the characters are. So you're filling up a character sheet rather than engaging with the characters. That's my assumption. Ruby, I don't know. I never watched Ruby, but Hasman Hotel has a sort of very similar style of character development. We're just learning about them. We're not engaging with like their arcs, their character arcs. Like what arc does Pomni go through? What arc does Jax go through? What arc does Ragatha or Zubul go through? Because you can see some growth there, but is it like a complete arc? Do we actually get all of that out of it? I don't think so. And if it was, maybe I missed it. I didn't feel that I don't feel like these characters moved on anywhere beyond what they started off with. They may have experienced a lot more, but I don't think they changed a lot more. And again, you don't necessarily have all the characters change, but some of them should have. Toxic fandom resulted in Goosework losing interest in continuing the show and just wanted to rush things to end it and never touch it again. I can see that. I didn't see the problem with there. I mean, the burnout is bad. Toxic fandom, I can certainly say. I can certainly see the problem there. But even again, I don't know what it is. It's if those last two episodes were rushed, maybe that's what they almost. It's not saying the toxic fandom is what they needed, but some of the choices were not bad choices in the end. Some of them you could have worked them, as I said, the episodes 8, 7, like the later episodes are actually like starting to. I was starting to feel like the motors are running, the engine is now on, and then it ends, and it's like okay, we need. Again, I don't know. It's interesting for me to think about it nowadays because I don't know anything off screen. I only seen the show. I don't know about the author. I don't know anything about the drama. I don't know anything besides just what I experienced from the show. So I cannot give you any kind of deep in lore or like justification for anything. This is how I felt. I felt that the ending episodes were actually starting to get somewhere, and then it ended. So if you know how you have the arc, you have the story arc. We were just about to at the inciting incident. 7 episodes in, I'm like, no, why are we having the inciting incident there? And that's what I make it. It's because people say, look, oh, it's a slow burn, it's a character driven story. I'm like, is it? Because I see a lot of character driven stories, and they're actually very efficient with their time. Character driven stories are not stories that where the character just tells about themselves. Character driven stories actually have very, very clean, um, very clean and efficient way of delivering the story of the character. The characters, so usually the character has a goal. You have to develop then what's stopping from reaching the goal. We're getting the characters who help them overcome their internal problem to defeat the external problem, something like that. And the only difference is that you give some time on attacking parts of the problem rather than the big overarching problem. So a plot-driven story is like, okay, there's a villain on the loose and he's causing problem. You're the warrior who has to save him. In this case, there's a villain on the loose, but in order for you to defeat him, you have to overcome certain aspects of yourself. So in the avatars, like say the Last Airbenders, Aang has to do all the reach the avatar state. Of course, the problem is that he sort of doesn't do that, but that's besides the point. The goal of the story was that he has to achieve an avatar state, and the only way to do that is by chipping away at the things that that prevent him from reaching that avatar state. So it's either finding the master, and thus over the time, the goal, we know we know where the characters are, and we sort of spread around. We explore the character through where they go, not necessarily that where they go is relevant to solving the greater issue of stopping Ozai. So you see that we explore the character, and this is kind of not. I wouldn't say that this show does that because there's never been a goal that all the characters have to achieve. The goal comes to them. It's like, okay, I guess someone knows something, or Kane does something. It's always like someone's driving the characters to just react, as opposed to them having a specific goal that they need to achieve. That's why the pacing is quite slow until the end, where they're actually being tormented and they're like, okay, we need to do something now. And as soon as they have to do something, then the story kicked in. I hope that makes sense. I hope that's not. Mm-hmm. It's a trend. Yes, that's. My God, Byakuya. Sorry, I was reading the chat. Where else? Where was I? Oh my God. I'm referring to Ragatha with the gore. Yeah, Gooseworks even said she was originally going to be subject to even more violence and have flesh organs, which I assume is just lore gore, funny, edgy bro. In some ways, yeah, the gore or the violence against them has lost a little bit of its value because the thing that they try to avoid is the abstraction. That's the only thing they're trying to avoid. So the torment, because it's cartoon violence, and they don't feel the pain in this kind of exact way that we do because they have no organs, they have no nerves. I don't even know if they feel pain or whether just being spun into made into a ball is like just feels weird, but it's not painful. Not painful. Sorry. The therapy sequence at least felt more earned in the finale since the primary goal is understanding. Kinger, not Kingler. Oh yeah, sorry. I don't know why I recorded in my brain he's recorded as Kingler. Kinger. I just joined the live stream, but what bothered me was Jack's back and forth throughout the series between he's terrible and poor thing. It feels like there's no real development. Yeah, I agree. You know who I like, and again, people who know me, but Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow the Hedgehog is kind of like what Jax is. He's an asshole, but you can tell that he's just a sort of wounded animal. But he doesn't want to show that, and he's like, yeah, whatever. But he's never directly out to like bully people. He's just not willing to get attached to them. But he needs, and again, that could be the conflict of Jax as well. If he's staying alone too long, he gets abstracted. He doesn't want that, let's say. So he has to stay with the group, but he doesn't want to get to it. But because he's forced to stay with the group, he starts to get attached, and thus he has to be an asshole to them. That would be the back and forth. That would be the sort of conflict between the two. That's how I see it. Shadow the Hedgehog does that great thing where he's a villain, but he's always like he is tormented by something. He has some sort of pain, or he sees himself as a monster. He doesn't deserve the friendship that he had. It was only one person that actually saw him for what he actually, for not a monster, and he cannot let that go. He has to hold on to that. But Shadow never went out to be an asshole. You can see him. He was used by the villains, that's true, but so was Knuckles and the other characters as well. But he was never out to like necessarily cause harm to like for the sadism's sake. It's usually just, I'm in pain, I need to find the outlet for it. Jax doesn't have that. He's clearly sadistic. And he cannot just be like, "Oh no, I'm just wounded. Don't you worry about me." It's like, no, you if you were, you wouldn't. You could be mean, but there's a level of meanness. Somehow Kane came back. Yeah, he did. And he's like, "Ooh, I'm sorry, I was mean to you guys." I was like, "Really?" Again, if that was neither option were good in him coming back, is like, "Sorry guys, I knew you tried to kill me, and maybe I was a bit of mean to you, but I think we can all work together." It's like, no, that the end of again, the ending seemed to me like just very mellow, which again, some would argue that might be a little bit subversive. But Kinger could have deleted the Kane, and then they get stuck in this black and white world. They try to conjure things up, and they try to make a life there. That might have been a nicer ending without Kane. They're masters of their own will, even though they're trapped in this world. They're masters of their own will. They conjure things, and Kane is gone. Like no one is controlling them anymore. But they're still stuck in this place, so they're still trying to make the most out of it. Base possibly could have had a good ending like that. Kane, I had no reason why I don't know why he returned, to be honest. I think that was a good combination. He glitches out, he's gone. But it could be one of those things where you love your character so much you don't want to kill them. Kingler the Pokemon? No. Okay, I know. Fuck, I messed up. CNA was going to have a bigger role in the show, but the finale just ignored it, unfortunately. Yep. Do you feel like another character teaching another one without letting them try to solve their issues on their own is a bad thing? I need to read this again. Do you feel like another character teaching another one without letting them try to solve their issue? I don't know if I understand the question, but that might be a context question. So the way that when it comes to teaching is that it's not necessarily have to be a direct form of teaching, but the other character may prompt them to think differently about whatever problem they have. So teaching could be non-direct or could be direct. Yeah, let's live together until someone turns off the computer. Because with 9 episodes, you really can't waste time. Yes, the unfortunately the plot was delayed. There was the hook episode, the introduction, then a few. They're obviously hinting. There's always was going to say is that the initial 5-6 episodes were teaching you about the character, but it just was too slow in order, like it's spinning its wheels, but we're still learning things about characters. It just we're not learning them in the most efficient way you could do. The best episode will always be a fast food one. Yep, no boring therapy, pure internal conflict and personal resolution. Chef's kiss. I like I like the fast food episode. I think that's my favorite one. And even Jax got his. As I said, that's like most is that Jax was not just hoo like I'm just being mean. It's like no, he actually was suffering there as well, which kind of gives you some indication on the character. I mean, not in directly way, but another thing about it is that he considers himself the comedic relief of the show, because in the episode in the finale, he's like, "Yeah, you killed off the comedic relief. What a bummer." I'm like, "You think you're the comedic relief?" I don't think you are, but okay, if you say so. You're not particularly funny, Jax. I don't know why you think you are. But again, that's just Jack's interpretation of himself, not necessarily what I hope that's not what the show is intending us to think that he was. If the lore of anything plot or character, if the lore of anything is plot or character relevant, and it isn't in the series, that's a failure of your work, especially judging it on its own merits. Yeah. Well, what's up? Okay, how many chats do we still have? Again, feel free to ask. I'll see how much. Oh my god! I'm still looking at the chats. Don't you worry, guys. Don't you worry. I'm with you. Don't you worry. We'll get there. We'll get there. I'm trying to think if there's any other important questions. You basically got my a lot of my feelings towards the show. And yes, I usually go more critique than it is praising the show, because praising the show is like pity, like giving them pity pets after they fail. Like, yeah, you missed the home run chant. That's okay. You still participated. I get it. I think there's some elements in the show that they're not terrible. I don't feel as angry at it as some of the other shows I've watched. To me, the show just seemed, again, very early stage creator, someone who's like starting their career, their first project, or like they're like they have concepts of a story they want to tell, but it's just not, the experience is lacking. As opposed to someone who's just committed to being wrong, like some other creators I don't want to mention particularly, who are just like, I'm gonna do my own thing, whatever. I don't need to improve. Let's see. Pomni's saying, well, we made a mistake. We all made a mistake. Some fans I heard took it way too far, which isn't right. Yeah. Maid dress is always good, but I agree. It's how strange it is to have a gender dysphoria character wearing it. Yeah, like again, for comedy's sakes, maid dress may have been funny. It's just, but they push that concept too far. I don't think it was needed. Uh, it's just that sometimes it actually meat is off screen. If the meat if the meat is off screen, then the meat is off screen. I'll tell you this much. I'm not the people. A lot of people again come up with their own headcanons to the story, and that's all fine and good. But when you're looking at the script, you're looking at the script. What's on the screen is that matters. I don't particularly care about theorizing unless it's shown to me, shown or told. If it's like, oh, you have to, and if you're talking about subtext, then it's not off screen. It's in there. I think to make indie animation go, I think to make indie animation goes viral as long as it has wacky character designs and lore appeal to terminally online adults in their 20s. Yeah, we've all been there. I think it's not necessarily healthy though. I don't want this to become something that people to latch onto. It's like, in order for me to make my story successful, I need to have mystery boxes. It's like, no. The show feels like 90% filler and 10% yeah, and the reason why is because there's no urgency in the characters. Apparently, Grisha first said every character would get the spotlight. It didn't feel that way. Then she said in this past survey that Pomni and Jax are the only main characters, not even Kane. I could see that. Kane, I don't even see Kane as, in the main character. He's just he is the objective, I think, or at least that's what I expected him to be. But they never unite. They complained to Kane, but they weren't necessarily adversarial. Oh my god. Hey, we're looking at the clips from the show. Yeah. Okay. It's character driven only. The only one who gets actual development is Jax, Kane, and I could maybe argue Zubul and Gangle, however, feeling very flat and underutilized. Yep. Uh, that's realistically what it was. It wasn't really presented on as writing on the wall in his room. Okay, made dresses are a fetish man. Yeah. Okay, I'm getting to the point where I mentioned about made Jax now, though. Oh, by the way, why is okay? I'm just reading the comments. Feel free to write them. I'm getting to them. Don't you worry. You should be mean to your characters and have a point doing so. Yes. Oh, did I catch up? Yeah, I catch up with the comments. Great. The show should have had more writers than Gooseworks. Yep, I think so. I think they're again, it's an ambitious show. It's an ambitious show for one person. If they're not, I don't know whether Gooseworks did any other works. Um, whether they just pitch the story and that's it. But obviously, consultation helps. Even a writer's room really helps to. Usually, you have people like me. That's partly what I do in a professional sense. I may not come up with the best ideas, but when people come up with ideas, I just like to fiddle with them and see if we can get more out of them. Um, and that's kind of almost what Gooseworks needed. They needed a person to be like, "Hey, I have this idea with this. What do you think?" It's like okay, but maybe they have it, maybe they didn't. It just felt like that's the only credit for writer and creator. So it feels like they needed like maybe two, maybe three, someone to rein them in, someone to like say like, is this necessary? Is this necessary? Someone to have a little bit more of a big picture view of the characters. Trend, if Gooseworks was given 100 episodes, do you think would have been better than Ivzy Pop? No. Stop giving episodes to people who don't who don't know how to make good shows from like 5 episodes, 10 episodes. Genny Tartakovsky never struggled to make good shows with limited amount of episodes. He made stories like Lauren Frost never struggled with making episodic small episode stories. There's plenty of great writers, creators who don't struggle with making great stories from very small amount of story. Like, and again, I feel you have to be a bit spoiled to believe that having 12 episodes is not enough for you to tell a story. Like that is not the mindset you should have. You should be thanking your stars you get one episode, and then maybe two and maybe three, and every single episode is like a gem you need to like polish. It's like, oh, I didn't get 20 episodes, so how can I tell my story? I'm like, you fool, you foolish fool. It means you pick the story you want to tell, you find the best way to tell it within that time, and you do it. It's like there's no. Again, I have the same problem with K-pop Demon Hunter. It's like, oh, it was cut down. They had so many ideas. Like, I don't care. The thing that they chose to have the things that weren't relevant. Or any other shows, like they chose to have waste time in in this seed, in this they chose to waste time with this gag, like the little lightning ground of all the everyone's ideas of like I forget it. I don't want to mix up, but I always do. Is like the episode 6 one is where the bar scene is happening. Like there's 5 minutes of those scenes, 5 minutes of those gags. Not 5 minutes. It's even more. I think it is. I think it's 10 minutes. Are just gags that don't deliver any character development whatsoever. It's just gags, like gag, 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 and then let's put 10 minutes, 5 minutes of them telling things. It's like no, you could have used all that time to deliver the information. Oh hey, salty shark. Oh my god, this nerd's back on the mic. Anyway, go watch Journal with Witch, a heartfelt family drama about a young girl forced to live with her estranged aunt after tragedy befalls them both. Super low stakes and brilliant. Oh, there we go. Recommendation from Salty Shark. Thank you for the super chat. Always appreciated. But yeah, that's the only thing that gets me angry. It's the sort of arrogance of people who think like, oh, my story deserves 4 books to tell. It's like, no, there's no such thing as a story that requires that many books to, to tell. Even if you write the first book, even if you like pick the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, that's technically a complete story, That is the complete story, and even if there was not a second book, you're still enjoying the first book. It's not like, oh, now we need to build it up with the real stuff to get good. I'm like, no, just make the first one, and let's see how we can expand the concept in the second one. Oh, two books worked out. Okay, is there any? Do you want to push it to the third one? Is there anything else you want to explore in this? Oh, you do, right? Okay, here's the third book for you. Are you sure you want to do the fourth one? It's I mean you already explored quite the concept quite a bit. Okay, okay, you convinced me. Book four, let's go. If you sit down and be like, I have a four-book idea, I was like, no, do the first one, please. I beg you. Do the episode one. What can we tell the story of Digital Circus in one episode? Kind of. I feel like you can tell not the entire story, but you can definitely con, you can definitely show off all the characters. You understand the concepts of what they're going through. You can tell the premise instantly. You can tell the stakes, and you can tell the like how they're going to resolve it through, let's say, one of the adventures. That's it. You already have the concept. So next episode, you do on a different character. Third episode, you do on a different character. Fourth episode, you do on a different character. Episode five, they're all combined. Episode six, they all fight the big bad guy. Number seven, you come up to the resolution of the problem because we already know how this story is gonna go. Bing Bang Bong, you have a story. It's like again, you can even condense it even more because I'm looking at when I'm watching these stories, I'm like, what am I gaining from this scene? And if it's just like one line, it's like we find out that you know Ganga likes anime. I was like, okay, she likes anime. And then every other scene where anime is involved, I'm like, okay, what else are we learning from this character? Because we already have she likes anime. What else do we gain from this? Oh, nothing. It's just repetition of the same character beat. I'm like, great. Why are we wasting time on this? Unless you're giving us some more valuable information, like what type of anime? Oh, romance anime. Okay, maybe. Okay, is there enough? Maybe someone can use that. Can we have a romance scene between other characters so we involve the characters in the whatever Gangle is wants to explore. So maybe but again, the characters were just like, wow, this is a fun anime adventure. I don't like this one. Then we go to the next one. I don't like this one. It's like, no, take this opportunity. You have an opportunity. And then and yeah, the more you repeat the same beats, it's like Jax is angry. Like Jax is mean because he doesn't want to get too attached. And then you have episode 2. Jax is mean because he doesn't want to get too attached. Episode 3. Jax is Jax was tied up. I think it was in that one. Episode 4. Jax is fed up. He doesn't want to get too attached, but now he's starting to get attached. I was like, that's oh my god, it's going at speed. It's going too slow. Andor does wonderfully with its 12 episodes and only 2 seasons. Yeah. Andor, again, I haven't seen the Andor, but the people I trust told me that it does exactly that. It's very efficient with storytelling. A hot take: I find limits can make creatives more creative. Yeah, makes it deliberate and learning. Yeah, the time limit should never interfere with a creative to tell a story. It may not be the full story they want to tell, but if they should know what is the main goal of their story. If I want to write a story about a character dealing with isolation, I can make that into a 1 minute film. I can make that into a 10-minute film. I can make that into an hour-long film. And each time I'm given more time, I am able to add more, not necessarily need more. If that makes sense, I hope that sort of gives you an idea of how I perceive these things. Superfluous elements take up all the screen time. Yes. Again, if I have to go Hasbin versus Amazing Digital Circus, I think Digital Circus wins, but not by much. It has different issues because at least the characters are fairly passive here. They're not sabotaging everything that they stand for, like within between episodes. I don't get. We're going at a snail's pace, but we're not going backwards. At least that's something to be joyous of in the show. Reminds me of someone who wanted advice from me, telling me how they have the story with 5-book plan. I'm like, brother, focus on the first one. Yes, that's. I always bang on this. I bang this drum very loudly. I haven't seen all the May Jacks merge, but I just don't think. Majax merch and Majax advertising was like super duper prominent on their Twitter. I remember that part. Any a part of a series, the closest to the show itself gets the sexualizing Jack made. Have you watched Jujutsu Kaisen, and does the hype and aura excuse lack of writing? No, it's garbage. It's hard garbo. I don't know why people like it. It's just it's just Bleach with extra steps, kind of. I heard Gooseworks took influence from Steven Universe for Amazing the Circus. Is there? Mm, I'm trying to see where the comparisons would be. Maybe Pomni as a character is kind of like Steven, but even then, it's just typical POV protagonist. Pomni. She doesn't particularly have much personality, but she's usually the viewer's POV. I think that's a symptom of monetization issue that the big corporations have. Either they must plan for a franchise and focus on their first work, which causes them to bunch things. Yes. So publishers, like book publishers, from what I have heard, they tend to like when the author has um, more things available. So when you finish, you publish your book, not publish, but you're getting your book published. A lot of the agencies, a lot of the publishers will be like, "So what else are you working on?" They will ask you this question, and you can be like, "Oh, I already started halfway of book two," and they're like, "Really? You can tempt them with that. Um, because usually a lot of the publishers don't like the concept of just like one and done authors. They want to get most out of the author because they want to build you as a brand. So that's it's not out of the context, out of the realm of like possibility that they want a series out of it. But you have to be honest with yourself. Does your story need to be a series? And a lot of the times it doesn't. Depends on the genre. Like I think detective stories can be infinite. You can have infinite stories as much as you can write them. Um, Ian Rankin, I don't know if you know this author, is like English author or Scottish author. I think he is. He has like a bunch of books and he keeps releasing those books because writing a detective just means you have the character that people like, and he goes up against different different criminals or tries to solve murders, and you can have infinite amount of that because the concept is fairly relatable, and you can make infinite stories with it. It's not a serialized stories, and publishers are like, yes, give us more. In fact, give us like a timeline of like how many books are you going to have this year, next year, and so on. All good. Ooh, who this? A character from my story is based partially on TDC. I'm trying to figure out how to write them her differently. So choosing characters for your story, how to say, you can take inspiration from any character. The way to make them differently is often can be you can use two characters, not necessarily one character. So let's say if you pick this character and you combine them, you like the traits of one character, you like the traits of another, and you'll get a completely different character. That's how you get them differently. So if you want to mix up if you want to mix up two characters or even three characters, you can do that. So like what aspect is necessary for the character to have in order for a story to progress. So I don't know which Looney made it. I don't know which character Oh, I think you did. You say it? No, I don't know specifically which character you picked. But if you find out what you like about that character, like why do you want to create a character based off of that? What is the purpose of them being like that? And then see if you can add something else to it. And that's usually how you can make a pretty good standard original character. Uh, I wonder if there's been much discussion about integrating introspective dialogue. Animated shows seem to keen on that lately. So introspective dialogue is like, I'm sad because I'm uggo, or I'm depressed, or therapy sessions, as I call them. Trauma dumping is another if they're very specific, but I don't particularly, again, it has an audience. It has an audience, this type of storytelling. I don't particularly like it. I'm not a fan. I like to be challenged a little bit, and I'll try to like come up with my own inferences based on the character's actions and dialogue. The way they interact with others gives me enough indication of who this character is. I don't need them to tell me that. You know, if a character is standing alone on a train, not talking with anyone, or not going with their classmates, or seeing the world around her fade out visually, that gives me an indication that she's suffering from isolation. I don't need any dialogue from her part. And if a character is, you know, one of the good characters is I forgot the story. God dang it, Scorsese's film. What is it? Uh, Taxi Driver. That's the one. Taxi Driver is just a character observing the world, and the way he reacts to some of the things that are happening, he gives me indication what his value system is, or like the way he takes his partner on a date. You know, if you know, if you've seen the film, you know where I'm leading to. That gives you an indication of what kind of character he is. We don't necessarily have to have a introspectively tell about him. Him looking at the mirrors like, you talking to me? You talking to me? I don't know. There's no one else here. It's him sort of again giving you all the hints you need to establish what his main problem is, what his main want is. You know, what is challenging him. Yeah, trauma dumb's dialogue like that isn't trusting the audience. It's just not creative. It's the same way I kind of see it. It's just the easiest way to do it. It's like writing, you know, he walked to the store, he picked up the milk, he put the milk on the cash register. Grammatically and storytelling wise, it's all correct. It's just the most basic way of telling. The he verbed approach to storytelling is in novels is the most basic, and it's the most like unimaginative. You could do so much more. So all it takes, and sometimes it all it takes. When some people ask me again for feedback on the stories, and they can often hear me say, "How can we push this a bit more? Can we make it a bit more creative?" They give me a paragraph. Like, let's how do we make this even more interesting, more exciting? How do we push it? And this comes again from Martin's philosophy. He looked at Hadrian's wall. It's a small wall, but him looking over that hill gave him the impression of the wall in Game of Thrones, and it's a massive one. That's because he scaled up the world, something very basic into a proper. So even when I'm writing my own stories, it's like I pick something very basic and very human, and then just scale it up to whatever the globe, the sort of galactic version of that. What would be a sort of a galactic version of a corporation, not without it being a corporation? How do we play around with the concept of this again, highly efficient organization? How do we make that into almost like a species of its own? How do we make a character that symbolizes depression? Let's say it's a tough one. It's a tough one to do, but you can do it. But it just means you have to play around with the concepts more than there's the basics. But the thing is, I'll tell you that much. Sometimes there are moments where it's the producers who are idiots. The people who are producing, they're reading the script and they're like, I don't get it. I don't get, why is this person, is this way. I don't get this. And then the writer will be like, okay, so let me put the line in saying that this character is depressed. And then the producer's like, okay, now I get it. Here's the $1 million. And you're like, okay. So again, I'm a little bit more forgiving for some of the writers' decisions because I don't know who to blame. But again, that comes with the title. You claim yourself to be the writer of the story. That means you'll take the blame regardless of who influenced you to make that decision. If it's a TV show, if it's a movie, then you blame the director. The writer only does what the director asked him to do. If the author, the director is also the writer, which oftentimes it is the case. Some interesting dialogue in the French New Wave. Ooh, bringing in French New Wave. That's good. Oh boy, time to hear the opinions of internet's favorite writing guru. Is the deck above or under Has Been Hotel? Slightly above, but not by much. If you want a definitive ranking, that's where it is. Slightly above Has Been Hotel. I think it's above Murder Drones. I think it is. Murder Drones was also like a pain to go through. And does it? Oh, I just saw the final bit in that clip. Yeah. Anything else I need to discuss on this? That's right. It's been already 2 hours. We're gonna. Oh my god, the anime episode. One of the things again I'm thinking in terms of like some of the writing decisions is how much did the marketing department gain? How much influence did the marketing department gain on Gooseworks? Like, is the anime episode, was it meant to sell merch or was it meant to tell the story? Because what we gain from this is like, it's a refreshing, it's a refreshing side adventure where we change the art style change. Like, I don't know. Like, was this the creator or was this the marketing? It's like, how can we make plushies out of anime jacks? Can we make plushies out of Can we get artwork out of anime Kinger? And I know it's cynical to look at, but that's often it's often how some of the decisions are made. It's like, how marketable will this be? How much retention are we going to gain from this scene? How many YouTube shorts are we going to gain from this scene? Why not both? I think peak therapy talk is Evangelion. The dialogue itself has conflict where character shields themselves. Yeah. Evangelion is a good one as well, I think, as a story. Shinji is almost like Jax in the sense like he's likable for many reasons, and a lot of the actions that he does is unforgivable. But you can see kind of where he comes from, and you can see the mental state he's in, and how he doesn't know how to express some of the internal struggles that he's going through. Whereas this one, I don't particularly see the correlation necessarily between Jax being an asshole to and who he's being an asshole to. Like, because if Jax sees himself in Gangle, then that may be like, again, a form of self-hatred, but I don't know whether he does that. Jack's gender dysphoria would be much more closer to Zubul, because Zubul also has a sort of questioning, who she is. It's an identity crisis kind of character. They would have much more, of a, and they kind of do. In some ways, I think there's plenty of scenes where Zubul is giving the hardest time to Jax, but also for some reason trying to be the biggest help for him as well. I don't know why, but she chooses to do that. Maybe again, she's trying to make this piece fall into place, and he just refuses. You can extrapolate a lot if you want to, but I'm just trying to go by what was given to me, not what I think. Yep, the fast food episode is just the best. And I didn't like that the show abstracted once in an aquarium as something beautiful. It feels like Norman Bates. Yeah. The abstraction should be something that is a scary thing. That's the only stake really that these characters have. That is the only thing that keeps them from sort of fighting again, not fighting against, but like complying with Kane's demands. Like, if you don't do that, you get abstracted. And it's like, okay, so at least there's some stakes here in the story. And again, they cutified the abstraction there, which is some of the visuals are really great in that regard, where the abstraction is a suffering creature, is a creature who's suffering because it should be symbolizing the sort of mental instability that's the peak mental instability. And they sort of cutified it a little bit. I don't think they had to. Jax going insane off screen also felt odd. But okay, I can see sort of the decision, the reason for it. It just seemed a little bit for all they were building up, just to have him abstract off screen. Took me by surprise. Not gonna lie. But again, I wouldn't necessarily say it's. A lot of people got really upset by that. I don't think I'm upset by it. I'm just again confused by it. That would have been much more dramatic if you have like him abstracting or him saying something before he gets abstracted to Pomni, or something to Zubul or anyone really. But they don't. How? I never understood the Gangle thing. In the finale, it's established that he likes her, so I guess the point is to reinforce that he still desires to connect with people. It took 7 tries, but that comment finally got read. Lol. Sorry. Having Jax be the. Okay, the comments. Feel free to write. I think I caught up with all the comments. I may have skipped a few if I didn't particularly have the right answer for it. But I think I got most of them in, so I'm now up to date with the lore. Oh god, we're watching this scene. The noir scene. Things that every character should have discussed a long time ago, but they didn't because the show wasn't created there yet. That scene was fitting for Jax the attention whore, but it's weird that Pomni didn't reach out the last time. Some people think Jax is a self-insert for Gooseworks. Again, could be. In some sense, all characters are self-inserts, just different elements of the same person. It's slightly exaggerated. He was fully dejected and numb to everything, so he gave up. All right, Trent, it's Ragatha that I'm using. Okay. Yeah, and remember the Ragatha scene? Like she's like, "Oh, it's my mom was something. My mom was something. I used to ride horses. I did this, and like it just gets never brought back again." What is Ragatha's like? This is where I bring up the character arc. Did Ragatha ever resolve whatever mother issues she had or whatever trauma issues she had? No, it was just mentioned. You put that into the character sheet, and that's it. It's like never brought up again. It's like why? If you're gonna set up something, you have to pay it off. And again, I looked at the list of things that were not paid off, and there's quite a big one. The beach episode as well. That's another strange one. That although I did like the jokes in that episode. And that actually was the sort of part of the mystery. But that beach episode should have been like episode 4. Or even earlier. Because that gives you a good impression of the characters, that gives you a good impression of the world, the wackiness of the world, and it starts to play around with the concept of escaping the circus. But the beach itself did not have anything to do with the progression. It was just a temporary. This is part of the problem. It's like the beach scene happens for again 5 minutes or so. I don't know exactly for how long, and then we cut to okay. Anyway, back to the plot. Now we found a guy. Now we found a guy who can get us out of there. I was like, what about the beach? Was that just literally for the fan service? Was that just for the meme of the beach episode? How? Okay. They didn't even bring back the beach. Aside from the ending is like the winners will get the shrimp. You know, the other alternative would be send to the shrimp dimension. Ragatha learned to be more genuine, but it wouldn't have her to get more context behind the mom issues. Only her real world counterpart resolved that. Yes, like I don't. Like these are two different characters. What about this Ragatha? Did she resolve her issues? Is she more genuine than she was before? What was the beach episode about again? Yeah, it's easy to forget. The beach episode is where they go out to the beach because Kane is away. He's doing something else, and then Abel shows up and tells them they know how to escape the circus. And then we forget about the beach and we go to the escape the circus scenes. The beach was a red herring on purpose. It would be if again you could incorporate this. Like she does the dive, she dives into the water and then she finds something there, and then they go to the or they found Abel under the sea to get him out. Because all that happened was like usually it's like in storytelling it's the therefore or but that are happening as opposed and then. So like therefore this happens, but then this happens, therefore this happens. That's our usual progression, plot progression. But in that scene, there's like there's the beach episode, and then Abel shows up, and then and then he tells that he knows how to get out of the circus. He found the exit. It wasn't a but or therefore. It was just and then. So even though the beach episode was a red herring, the transition between to the next one is not. Like if Pomni dove into the water, found something that prompted her to find Abel, then maybe you could twist that. Like it's a smoother transition as opposed to just randomly a character randomly shows up. Honest opinion, Kane should have stayed dead. Yes. I committed away spoiling the ending of your story because you instantly make the story predictable. Was the dull character in the finale? I don't know. If Jax didn't openly be right about it before slowly going along with ruining everything, it would have made them snapping upon. It wouldn't make them snapping upon being right about the ragdoll rug pull work. Yeah, Jax. That story could have worked in the sense that Jax didn't want to do it. He thought it was a lie. He goes to the adventure. He gets too close. He feels like they're going too close to escape. We needed to find out why he didn't want to escape to the real world. And there you go. And then, but even then, like it's they knew that it's not real. But obviously they wouldn't trust Jax now. But why would they trust him in the beginning? He was never on their side in that regard. They didn't have to save him. He's like, oh, whatever. Here's the key. I'm not going. Okay, bye. Bye, Jax. Like, no, we all are in this together. They didn't need to bring Jax. I don't know why they did. What's novel? The whole existing will be just another adventure changes. Also, the fact that it's a strange one when Kane established that he cannot control human brains, but then he does control humans' brains. It's a little bit of a plot hole, or again, the character is lying. But then if he can control the human character's brains, then how much has he also controlled? How much did he alter the character's mindsets? And then you approach the concept of free will at that point, because they're not human they're not human. These characters, they're brain scans. And if they're code, why can't an AI alter the code? That's true. Anywho, any other questions, observations, or anything like that? Any other interesting comments? Always happy to read them out. Not sure if I could give you the right answer, but Like if I can ask you a question, who do you think has the most complete character arc? Let's not say who, but what is the character arc and whose character arc is it? Like give me some ideas. If you were watching the show and you'd be like, okay, in this show it's about Pomni learning to accept herself, question mark. Like give me some of those if you can. I don't know if the chat is open, you can always ask. What do you think was their arcs? I would be like Gangle became more comfortable with her being herself, question mark. I think. I never get it. If I watch episode 1 and episode 9, will I see that much of a difference from Gangle? Mm, because Jack's abstracted. So his story is him being abstracted the happiest he's ever been, because that's kind of where the show was trying to take it. Like he's unable to, but do you want that kind of character? Is that really the Jax finally became comfortable with who he is, question mark, by getting abstracted, question mark? Yes, if a brain scans are just digital constructs of real humans, then could it be possible for Kane to duplicate multiple brain scans to revive abstracted players? Yes, technically he should be able to do that, because he can just do reload brain scan. And I don't want to necessarily spoil Soma for you guys if you like this concept, but Soma plays around with that idea. It's a really good game. I highly recommend. Even if you just watch the let's play, it does put you in a sort of a very somber mindset on the concept of like how much free will you have, what is identity, if like someone can scan your brain and it can make duplicate copies of you, how does that affect your own psyche? It's a stream. Yes, unfortunately it is a stream. Abstraction visually feels like a file corruption while also being kind of a sort of suicide or even cognitive collapse. Yeah. But again, he is Jax abstracting, because we see him like happily snoozing in bed and Pomni's like supporting him. Is that really the outcome that he wanted? Is that really the happiness that he craved? The final release from the stress of the world, or what? Like he's not redeemed, so he wasn't a redemption arc. He just died essentially. But does that affect the other characters any? Like, okay, they're giving him a chance and they feel sorry for him, question mark. But why would they? Because he's been an asshole to them all the time. What do you think about Jax being trans? I just don't see much point in it. It never hit me at the beginning. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily a good approach to addressing trans issues. Not that I know enough about trans issues to give you an honest opinion on it. It just feels like having a character who's trans to be an asshole to everyone seems like not necessarily the most politically correct move to do. Because you would have to go with a much more nuanced way. And the fact that he merchandised the maid outfit, Jax, also seemed like the wrong thing, like the politically incorrect thing to do when someone who's suffering with gender dysphoria. Gangle, like Zubul, I was thinking more would be work on that, because it's the idea again. If you're falling into pieces and you're trying to build your perfect self, that might be more of a identity crisis, gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria would be closer to that, but Jax never had that kind of. Jax never had that problem necessarily. Like you had to swap them around in some cases. maybe Jax's story is about a cautionary tale about masking. I mean, do keep in mind he's always masking his true feelings. You know who's masking their true feelings? Gangle. Literally has masks. Literally has masks to hide. And oh, you know who else is masking their feelings? Ragatha. So like you have those characters. So is that why he hates them? Is it because they're actually symbolizing sort of, symbolizing what he is or what he perceives himself to be? Because there are characters who are better at who are much better at capturing this sort of masking your true feelings or being, worrying about what other people perceive you. Kinger didn't really need it. He was the one pushing others forward. Ragatha desperately needed Coda beyond just for a Pomni growing closer. Um, Pomni's issues was already resolved in episode 2, so she wasn't very satisfying. Yep. Pomni's like, I'm looking for escape. I can't escape. Oh well, I guess I'll just live here. Most of the characters mask in some ways. Kane, Zubul also mask. Yeah, Kane and Zubul also mask. Is Pomni masking? Pomni's not really, as far as I know. So it's like, okay, so you have 4 characters who are all suffering from the same problem. Maybe that's the commonality between them. The major amazing digital circus allows them to construct their new selves that they're comfortable with. Question mark. Again, I'm just toying around with the ideas. It doesn't have to be on it. The fast food episode was a parallel to what Kane was going through also. Yeah. Let me take a little sip of sip water. Ah. Oh yeah, not particularly a huge fan of Zubul having this sort of always complaining. She's the grump of the character, but I'm not particularly a fan of a lot of the time wasted on her just complaining about the things. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. That's part of her character. Whether it's the tone, whether it's just the frequency, because a few lines were fine. Is like Kate is like, did someone say adventure? No one said that. Like you could have that seething anger. You could have that seething anger appear every now and then, like as a running gag of her being the sort of the straight man and always trying to deny Kate the sort of the satisfaction of like emerging into the world, emerging into the adventure. She's always the skeptic. She's always the critic that Kane just gets frustrated by, and he's like, how do I reach these kids? But I think some of the cases where she just does it too long, like always accusing others. But again, that's how I perceived it anyway. That's my impression on it. I need to get going. Take care. Bye. Let's see. Do you think the show would have been better without Jax? I mean, he does take away the majority of the screen time, and other characters didn't have much for development and if I'm being honest, I did. Okay. I did not care about him much. Jax is definitely stealing a lot of the spotlight. Not sure would I get rid of him completely? No. And I said this earlier in my stream. I like the concept of a character who is the saboteur of the team, so that you would always have characters who have a different goal in these adventures. So Jax, let's say if let's say Jax is quite happy with being in the, he already accepted he's going to be trapped here forever. Maybe he knows something that the other people don't, and he's just constantly sabotaging the team from trying to escape or releasing them. Jax may be a character who may be quite content with being in the circus, and he might enjoy being in the circus for the reason of just doing whatever he wants, bullying others because he sees there's no point. He's in a simulation, and in that case, then you could have all kinds of conflicts. That's kind of what the show tried to do, but that's how he would be used. It's like, yep, they try to do this, and he's always trying to get the sort of not necessarily ruin the adventures, but maybe like Pomni gets too close to some sort of progress in stopping Kane or getting out, and he tries to sabotage it or tries to like let Kane know about it, and you're like, ooh, if only Jax wasn't there to sabotage everything. But they don't know. But the characters may not know that he is doing that. Like play around like this, you could use him as a villain character. Yeah, as Serial Never Gaza said, remove him and you lose a lot of the that have. Do we remove him and you lose a lot of that and have to completely overhaul the show and the point behind it? Would you? I'm trying to remember the scene. Let's say episode 2. Does Jax push like there's he literally pushes someone, pushes Gangle next to the escalator, but normally it was okay. Kane creates an adventure. They all go on the adventure. The team splits up. Omni goes to see the falls out off the edge of the world and sees the crocodile. They have this emotional talk while the other adventures are still going. So what is? I'm trying to again. It's been a while since I've seen episode 2, even though I rewatched it recently. I said I watched it. I don't know why I don't remember anything beyond the alligator scene. But Jax was just an asshole to both characters. Does he push them any to solve any problems particularly? The problem is that, like, let's say pick the gun episode. The gun episode, Jax has a lot of time there with Pomni, and he's enjoying spending time with her. But is he pushing the plot? Is he pushing the characters besides literally pushing them in terms of like doing the task? I'm not sure. Like again, I'm just I think again the Burger King episode, the Burger King episode might be one where he's much more like I don't like you, I don't like this happy you. You know, when he's actually admitting that he doesn't like Gangle when she's happy, and that was a sort of like okay now that makes her Gangle think about it. Even then, Jax was already serving as what happens when people don't try to be there for each other. Maybe Jax focus on the end is supposed to be sort of final obstacle. Oh, you could play around so much with like again. Jax seems to be again too much of a passive character. I want him to actually do something for himself besides just him like, oh, I just accepted that I'm going to be stuck here forever, and don't bother me, get away from me. But I also don't want to be you to get away from me. If he actually had some sort of goal, whether he wants to take over the circus, whether he wants to make his own, he wants to become Kane. Maybe then, maybe he doesn't want the system to end, so he's a saboteur. But he doesn't particularly. He's just an asshole. He doesn't have these kind of ambitions. Is the linchpin behind the? He's allowing Pomni to play around with the concept of like being mean and accepting the fact that they're in this virtual world. Which again, you could play around with that. It's a bit late to play around with the concept at episode 6, but that would have been interesting. Someone who's taken advantage of everything that the simulation is giving them. Kind of like Bunny Girl Senpai. Okay. If the show was structured in a way where all characters get their share of development until we reach Jax, kind of like Bunny Girl Senpai. Yeah, it could have been easily done. if you do the Jax episode, which they did kind of Jax episode last, but I mean they did the Jax sort of character development, you know, in episode 4, episode 5, and you get the other characters working together and Jax being passive, then maybe when it comes to Jax's turn, we see how he doesn't want to be part of the team and why he doesn't want to be part of the team. But we're exploring different stories. It's the story that's given to us now. It's like, what is driving all these characters? What does Jax want? Let's say, if anyone who's defending Jax as a character, what does Jax want in his life, in his adventure, in his life? What is his big want? Does he want to? What is his want? What is his need? Let's say it this way. Because Pomni's was there at the beginning. She wants to get out. She wants to get out of the digital circus, and you could say her need would be she needs to save everyone from the digital circus, or she needs to, or you could have her accepting that she's not real. There's no escape. It could be someone unwilling to accept the fact, and the exit sign could be a symbolism of that. See what I mean? Like you could play around with the concept, but it's just where I'm struggling is their needs and wants in terms of character development. I just want to know your thoughts about it. Mm. And they sure did a lot of money, and surprised they didn't make any more episodes. They don't need any more. Like they already had too many episodes. That's my take on the Digital Circus. They already had too many episodes. They didn't need any more. The time they were given was plenty. 4 hours to tell this story? No way. You could tell this in 2. You could cut half of this, and you could get everything you want in this. If it's just revised and tightened, nothing. You could cut so many of these scenes out because a lot of the beats are repeated. So if you just, instead of 4 times it's repeated, the Jax is he doesn't want to get people to come close, then to like 2 times or 1. That might be you would have saved so much time. There we go. Overall, what do I think? I think there's plenty of time. 2 hours, 12 minutes. I think I talked enough. If you have any other questions, if in regards to the Amazing Digital Circus, I mean, or any other comments that you want me to explore. As I said, a lot of people who like the show will like it for different reasons than what I like stories for, and that's fair enough. But if you're looking at it from the pure storytelling perspective, it's a story that spins its wheels, and that's a lot of the problems within the animations. It's a story that is not condensing what it's about. There's a lot of time wasted on what we think is important, but if you just think about it slightly differently, you realize how not relevant it actually is. And I think it would have worked even better. I think it would have worked a lot better if you told you only have 1 hour to tell the story, go. And I think if you have this mindset, you tell them they have an hour to tell the story, and then you give them a flashbang saying, actually, you have 2 hours to tell the story, or 3. I think that would help the creator a lot more to hone in on what actually is the most important thing about the story, and how can we convey this in a lot faster, in a much faster way than we got. But it would require, but that's a different approach. If the goal is to give people a relatable character who deal with these issues, who to relate to these characters, then this story kind of does that. The problem, what it doesn't do, is that it doesn't give a satisfying resolution to their conflicts. And I'm not sure if the conflicts have been honed in on in a way where we can not capture, but in a way that we can focus on. Like, this story is about loneliness. How does this character deal with loneliness? How does the circus help help him or her deal with the loneliness? Does it even do that? What is the consequences of not, asking a lot of questions on this particular theme or topic? And you always have to ask yourself, was this the best way to convey that information? And I don't think it was, personally. A lot of people who like just the direct approach will say it was, but that's matter of opinion. Yeah. And someone said, Bemisem, I feel like the biggest independent projects like TED's and has been fail upward. They succeed because people like the fandom and ignore the failure of the actual work. Yeah, that's normally what I think is happening now. Whenever I hear people say like, "What else could they have done?" It's like, no, they could have done infinite amount of options, and we can learn of like you can even answer that question. What could they have done better? What do you think would be in more interesting or not? But it's like, I got the project I got. I got a good feeling about it. I'm in the community. I'm okay with everything they do. I was like, that's great, but can we learn? Can we do it better? Is it possible to do it better? It's like, no, it's impossible. It's perfect. It's 10 out of 10. I'm like, well, then what is the conversation? What's the point? If you think it's perfect, then the show was made for you, you know. Then the show achieves whatever you wanted from it. I feel like it could have done more, and I hope I gave my reasons for it. I know a lot of my comments now are like, "Where's your proof? Where's your proof?" And maybe I need to do it, but I rather give my first sort of my impressions on it and um, try to discuss the greater issues rather than necessarily focus on the plot holes. My content is normally not about that anyway, unless it's an example of like what I'm talking about. But I think I gave you guys enough info. And also, actually, before I sing, another topic I want to discuss is again the potential. I am sick and tired of hearing people say this show had potential, this story had potential, but it didn't accomplish it. I like the concept, but it didn't achieve. It's like, no, just say it wasn't, it failed. Like the potential, like every story has a potential to be successful. From the shittiest fanfic from the most ambitious story, it's equal the potential is equally, it had the potential to suck and it had the potential to succeed. The potential is having the potential itself is a useless metric by which we judge the story. You could say you like the themes, you can say you like the characters, and they weren't underutilized. But I don't particularly want to give praise to a show for having potentially be good. I would actually like to give it praise for being good, not the potential of being good. It's just what I've been hearing on the discussions, on media discussions recently. Um, I would look at stories for what they are, not necessarily what you want them to be. But the same because I apply that to myself as well. I understand the story where I want it to be, and the story that it is two different things. And I'm not gonna, again, I could say I don't like this, and I think they could have been done better, and I give my examples. And I feel like a lot of people would be a lot more happier doing that too, every now and then, as opposed to defending bad choices for because you like them. There's a difference. Some ideas are bad on paper. No, some idea executions are bad on paper. Ideas are not bad. You could any idea can be made into good. As the wave works. Yeah. Yeah, many indie productions have like there's lots of potential. And again, that's what indie is in some cases. It's them showing their potential. The creators are showing their potential, what they can do. They have the potential of being successful, and this is their attempts at doing it, trying to prove that. They're the potential, not necessarily the work. It's like Gooseworks has the potential of being because she's already playing around with some interesting concepts. So all she needs now is someone to reel some of them in or like hone them in, and that's pretty much it. Like that, they can achieve a lot. But that depends again on what they want, the creator wants. Um, I'm sure that a lot of people will like Amazing Digital Circus, but I think over time it's gonna be the honeymoon will pass. What I think is gonna happen, unlike with Arcane season 2, I don't think the people will not hate this show as much as Arcane season 2 or Hazbin Hotel season 2. I think the show will be like, I liked. People will remember it fondly, and they will remember it petering out over time. But I don't think it will have the hatred and animosity of it won't have the hatred or animosity as many other indie productions do. I think it's going to be much more like than so definitely going to be much more like than Murder Drones, because there's something wholesome in these stories as well. Like I genuinely felt I genuinely started to care a little bit about the characters, or at least what the author intended me to think about them. And that's to do with the music, that's to do with the animation, and just the wholesomeness of the non asshole characters. Not every character here is an asshole, so that's already an achievement in my books. But I'm leaving this story, and again, whether I come back to it as a proper video, I don't know, because I need to find an angle by which I can actually make it productive, and I'm not sure if I can find one yet. I definitely have a video on my mind. I definitely want to come back to Hazbin Hotel season 2. That thing needs to be examined from a very interesting point of view. That piece of work. But yeah, definitely these are my sort of first impressions, a little bit of analysis here. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully this was at least hatcheted some of the answers. Oh god, I just remember BoJack is still on the table potentially. That means I have to watch it again. I think I would much rather watch Digital Circus than BoJack, but that's just me. But yeah, thank you for staying with me for this long, for 2 hours 22 minutes. Wow! What an adventure this was. We almost got through. This is the running time. What I think the actual running time of the Amazing Digital Circus. That's what it should have been. 2 hours at most. 4 hours is for pushing it. But yeah, if you want to chat with me more, I'll be in the Discord. The links are in the description. I hope they are. Let me know if they're not, but you feel free to join me there. I'll be in the voice chat. I know there's a lot of people on the server who like Digital Circus, and they're in that my the right category, the who would be fans of the show. There is a lot of like. It's just yeah, that's how I see it. And I think Gooseworks, I think again, just find someone to help you out on future projects. I think there's a lot of potential in this person too. But aside from that, I think that's it. I think that's everything. Thank you for watching again. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the next upcoming video. Debate in VC, guys. Oh god, I'm tired of base. I'm tired of fighting boss. Yes, but feel free to join us in the VC too. We'll be looking forward. Bye bye. Bye bye.